He locked the door, certain he could control the moment. But when she walked in, calm and collected, he realized he had no control over what was coming next. Everything he thought he owned, his life, his empire, even the woman he was about to marry, was about to shatter. Will he fight or watch everything he built collapse? You are watching Mr. Leo Love Stories. If you believe true love can survive betrayal, secrets, and impossible choices, then subscribe to this channel and help this family grow stronger. The Blackwood Tower was quiet that night. Too quiet. Most of the staff had already gone home, but the city still pulsed with life below. Kane Blackwood stood at the window of his top-floor office, a glass of whiskey in hand, his reflection staring back at him in the glass. The perfect CEO. The perfect heir. The man everyone admired, but no one truly knew. Behind him, the sound of heels clicked against the marble floor. Clara, his loyal assistant, entered with the last batch of files. "Mr. Blackwood, I've arranged your meeting with the Lancaster family for Friday evening. Evelyn will be." "Leave them on the desk, Clara," Kane said without turning around. His voice was cold, commanding, and final. Clara obeyed, but before she could excuse herself, the door opened again. And then, silence. Kane turned slowly. His grip on the glass tightened. Zaria Cole. It had been years since he last saw her. Yet there she was, standing in his office with that same fire in her eyes. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to exist in his world anymore. Clara looked between them, confused. "Should I leave?" Kane ordered, sharper this time. Clara hesitated, sensing tension thick enough to choke on. But she didn't argue. She slipped out, the door closing behind her. For a long, heavy moment, neither Kane nor Zaria spoke. The silence was a war of its own. Finally, Kane moved. He set his glass down, walked to the door, and with deliberate slowness, locked it. The click of the lock echoed in the room like a gunshot. He turned back to her. "Why are you here, Zaria?" His tone was ice, but his heart was pounding. Zaria lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled at her sides. "I came to tell you the truth. A truth you can't buy your way out of. A truth you can't bury with your family's power." Kane narrowed his eyes. He'd heard plenty of accusations in boardrooms, from rivals, even from women who wanted more than he was willing to give. But this was different. Zaria wasn't here to beg. She wasn't here to plead. There was steel in her voice. Still, Kane sneered, masking his unease. "Truth? After all these years, you show up in my office talking about truth? You should have stayed gone." Zaria didn't flinch. "I tried. Believe me, I tried. But some truths, they don't stay buried." Kane's jaw clenched. His mind raced. He wanted to end this, dismiss her, but something about the way she looked at him, so certain, so unshaken, forced him to stay rooted. "What truth?" he asked finally. Zaria took a slow breath. Her lips parted, her voice trembling but sure. "You're a father, Kane." The words hit him like a sledgehammer. He froze. His breath caught in his chest. Zaria stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You have a son. His name is Malik Cole Blackwood. He's 5 years old." The silence that followed was unbearable. The mighty Kane Blackwood, the man who controlled empires, stood utterly powerless. 1,000 thoughts slammed into him at once. A son? 5 years? Zaria had been gone all this time, and now she comes back. With this? His voice cracked as he finally spoke. "You're lying." But even as the words left his mouth, he knew. Deep down, he knew. Zaria's eyes softened, but only for a moment. "Do you really think I'd come here, after everything, just to lie? He's yours, Kane. He has your eyes, your temper, your stubbornness. Every night he asks about his father. And every night. I have no answer to give him." Cain staggered back, shaking his head as if he could physically reject her words. His hand gripped the edge of the desk for support. "You should have told me," he rasped. Zarya's voice cracked for the first time. "I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. But you made your choice, Cain. You chose your family. You chose Evelyn. You chose power. You left me no room." Cain's chest heaved. The office suddenly felt too small, the air too heavy. He wanted to shout, to deny, to break something, anything. Instead, his voice dropped to a whisper. 5 years. You kept my son from me for 5 years. Zarya's eyes burned with unshed tears. "No, Cain. You kept yourself from him." And with that single line, the empire Cain had built around his heart cracked wide open. But before he could respond, Zarya turned away, her voice trembling. "You locked this door thinking you were in control. But the truth is, you've been locked out of your own son's life all along." Cain's heart thundered in his chest. His hands shook. For the first time in his life, the great Cain Blackwood didn't know what to say. And then, Zarya reached into her bag. She pulled something out. Cain's eyes locked on it, his breath caught in his throat. It was a photograph. A little boy. 5 years old. Dark curls. Bright eyes that mirrored Cain's own. Cain's world tilted. His knees nearly buckled. The photograph slipped from Zarya's fingers and landed on his desk with a soft thud. "This," Zarya whispered, her voice breaking, "is Malik. Your son." The sound of his name, his son, echoed in Cain's mind like a haunting refrain. And before he could steady himself, before he could process what this meant for everything, his family, his fiancée, his empire, Zarya looked him dead in the eye and said the words that tore through him like a blade. "You'll have to decide, Cain. Will Malik grow up knowing his father, or will he grow up believing his father chose power over him, just like he chose it over me?" The room fell silent. The air felt heavy. The photo of Malik stared up from the desk. And Cain Blackwood, the man who never lost control, stood utterly undone. Cain's fingers still trembled around the photograph, but the moment Zarya's words left her lips, his mind pulled him back into a past he had tried for years to bury. The memory clawed at him, vivid as fire. 7 years ago, at the height of his family's empire, he was standing at the Blackwood Gala with Evelyn Lancaster on his arm, smiling for cameras, shaking hands with senators and investors, pretending the weight of destiny didn't suffocate him. He played the role of the perfect heir, the obedient son. But in the middle of all that glitter and performance, he saw her. Zarya Cole. Not wrapped in diamonds or draped in silk, but in a simple emerald dress that set her apart from every other woman in the hall. She wasn't there to make deals or to smile for photographers. She was there because she had been hired to sing. Her voice cut through the noise of laughter and champagne, like it had been meant to reach him and only him. He didn't even realize he'd stopped breathing until Evelyn touched his arm, whispering his name to pull him back. He smiled for her, for the cameras, but his eyes kept going back to the woman on that stage. Later that night, after the crowd thinned, Cain found her outside near the balcony. He didn't even know why he walked there, maybe to breathe, maybe to escape the weight of Eleanor's watchful eyes. But when he saw Zarya leaning against the railing, staring at the city lights as if she belonged to them, something inside him shifted. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice sharp but curious. She turned, calm, unflinching, her lips curving into the smallest smile. "Neither do you." It was the first time in years someone had spoken to him like that, stripped of fear or admiration. And Cain knew right there he was in trouble. What started that night grew into stolen calls, late-night meetings, and secret escapes to quiet motels where the heir of an empire could just be a man. For the first time in his life, he laughed freely, spoke without rehearsing, lived without calculating. Zarya didn't treat him like a Blackwood. She treated him like Cain. And that was intoxicating. But they both knew their love was dangerous. Cain was already promised to Evelyn. Their families had been grooming the match for years. His mother Eleanor had eyes everywhere, controlling, calculating, reminding Cain every day that duty mattered more than desire. Yet no matter how much he tried to bury himself in business, he kept going back to Zarya. Until Eleanor cornered him one evening. She didn't need to say Zarya's name. Her cold stare, her sharp words, were enough. "You will not embarrass this family, Cain. The Lancasters are watching. Evelyn is waiting. Your future is already written. Don't you dare try to rewrite it." Cain clenched his fists but said nothing. He wanted to fight, but silence was easier. Silence meant survival. He told himself he would explain everything to Zarya, that he would find a way to protect her, but the more he delayed, the more his silence spoke for him. And she noticed. The unanswered calls. The visits that grew shorter. The way he looked over his shoulder as if he was ashamed of her. One night, when rain poured hard against the motel window, Zarya whispered the words that split him open. "Am I just your escape, Cain? Or am I worth fighting for?" The words burned his tongue, but he couldn't let them out. Fear chained him. He thought silence was safer than promises he might not be able to keep. But that silence was louder than betrayal. Zarya's tears mixed with the rain. She walked out that night, and Cain didn't stop her. His silence told her everything she needed to know. What he didn't realize was that she carried more than heartbreak when she left. Weeks later, Zarya found herself staring at 2 pink lines on a test strip. At first, fear consumed her. She had no wealth, no empire, no army of lawyers and guards like the Blackwoods. But when she heard that tiny heartbeat, when she felt the first flutter inside her, fear turned into love so fierce she couldn't explain it. Her son. Cain's son. Malik. She tried to reach him. God, she tried. She called until his number stopped ringing. She showed up at his office only to be told by Clara that his schedule was booked indefinitely. She drove to the Blackwood estate, but never got past the gates. Protocols, guards, assistants, every door she knocked on was slammed shut. And then one day, his number was blocked. That was her answer. Alone and heartbroken, she left the city, retreating to her parents' small town. They took her in, cared for her, stood by her through pregnancy and sleepless nights. She gave birth with her mother's hand gripping hers, her father pacing nervously outside the door. And when she looked into Malik's eyes for the first time, she knew she had made the right choice. She didn't need Cain. Her boy needed her, and she would give him everything she had. The years that followed were not easy. Zarya worked as a schoolteacher by day, pouring her soul into shaping young minds. At night, after Malik slept, she stayed up writing, freelancing for magazines and blogs, squeezing out extra money to support her parents' efforts. She built a life, humble but honest, quiet but full of love. But Malik grew. And with his growth came questions. "Where's my daddy?" he asked one night, his big brown eyes searching hers. Zarya froze. For years she had rehearsed answers, but none of them felt right in that moment. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "One day you'll understand." But deep down, she knew she couldn't hide the truth forever. And then she saw the headlines. Cain Blackwood, the untouchable CEO, finally making his engagement to Evelyn Lancaster official. The images of him in glossy magazines, perfect smile, perfect suit, perfect lie. She felt something snap inside her. It wasn't anger anymore. It was resolve. Her son would not grow up believing he was invisible. He deserved the truth, even if it shattered Cain's world. That's why she came back. That's why she stood in his office today with fire in her eyes, with Malik's photograph in her hands, daring him to deny what his heart already knew. And that's why Cain now sat frozen, his world unraveling, memories tearing at him like blades. He wanted to say something, anything, but his lips refused to move. Then, the sound that made his blood run cold. The office door clicked. The handle turned. "Cain? Are you in there?" The voice was unmistakable. Smooth, polished, entitled. Evelyn Lancaster. The fiancée chosen by his family. The woman who could not, under any circumstance, discover what was happening behind this locked door. Zaria's eyes widened. Her breath caught. If Evelyn stepped inside now, everything would detonate. Kane's pulse hammered. He had only seconds. Would he open the door and protect the lie he had lived in for years? Or would he risk it all by standing his ground with Zaria and the truth she brought back into his life? The handle turned again, and the door began to open. The handle twisted, and Kane's chest locked. For a split second, he thought about shoving the photo into a drawer, hiding Zaria behind the curtains, pretending none of this existed. That was the Blackwood way: cover, conceal, control. But Zaria wasn't the type to hide. Her chin lifted, her eyes burned into his, daring him to make her invisible again. The door cracked open, but Kane shot across the room and pressed it shut with his palm before Evelyn could step through. Kane. Evelyn's smooth voice carried suspicion. Why is the door locked? What's going on in there? His heart slammed against his ribs. Behind him, Zaria's breathing quickened, but she didn't move. Kane lowered his voice. Not now, Evelyn. I'm in the middle of something. Her laugh was short, humorless. In the middle of what? A secret I shouldn't know about. She pushed at the door, but Kane's grip held it shut. Zaria's arms folded, her gaze cutting like glass. Kane could feel her eyes stabbing his back. Every second that ticked by made the air heavier. Later, Kane forced out. I'll explain later. Kane Blackwood, Evelyn said, her tone sharp with entitlement. If you think locking me out of your office is acceptable, then you've forgotten who I am. Open this door. Her demand echoed. His jaw tightened. His world was splitting in two. Behind him, the truth, staring him in the face. Before him, the lie he'd been raised to live. Please, Kane said through clenched teeth. Not now. Silence. Then the sharp click of Evelyn's heels retreating down the corridor. But Kane knew her well enough. This wasn't the end. She would circle back. She would pry. And if Eleanor caught wind of this moment, the fallout would be nuclear. When the sound of footsteps faded, Kane turned. Zaria stood tall, arms wrapped around herself. That's her, isn't it? Her voice trembled with suppressed fury. The one they chose for you. The one you let them cage you with while you left me in the dark. Kane opened his mouth, but words tangled in his throat. He wanted to explain, but how do you explain cowardice? Zaria stepped closer, eyes blazing. Do you know what it was like, Kane? Calling you until the line went dead? Standing at your gates, begging just to see you, while guards treated me like trash. Do you know what it's like to carry your child, alone, while you pretended I didn't exist? Her words slammed into him harder than any boardroom battle. He felt stripped, small, ashamed. I tried, Kane, she whispered, her voice cracking. I tried to tell you, but you didn't want to be found. He flinched, because she was right. His silence, his weakness, had pushed her away. And now, that silence had a name. Malik. Kane dragged a hand down his face, pacing, choking on the weight pressing down. I didn't know, he said, his voice hoarse. Zaria, I swear, I didn't know about him. But you knew about me, she shot back. And still you let me go. The sting of her words carved into him. Memories of her voice, her laughter, the way she used to fall asleep on his chest, all of it collided with the image of a little boy who carried his blood. What do you want from me? He asked finally, almost a whisper. Tell me what you came here for. Zaria's lip trembled, but her eyes never wavered. I didn't come for money. I didn't come for revenge. I came because Malik deserves to know the truth. He deserves to know who his father is. Not some headline version of you. The real you. The real him. Kane almost laughed at the irony. Did he even know who that was anymore? The CEO? The obedient son? The coward who let her go? Zarya stepped back, her hand brushing the photo on his desk. I'll give you time, Kane. But not much. He's 5 years old. He's asking questions I can't keep answering with lies. Her voice softened, but the steel remained. It's not about us anymore. It's about him. Her words were a knife and a bomb at once. Kane wanted to hold on to them, to anchor himself, but before he could speak, the sharp echo of heels returned. Evelyn again. Zarya's head snapped toward the door, her eyes narrowing. She grabbed her bag and moved toward the corner of the office. Handle her, she hissed. But remember, Kane, this time silence won't save you. The handle twisted. Kane's body went rigid. He forced himself to breathe, forced his features into the mask he had perfected over years of playing the Blackwood air. The door opened wide, and Evelyn stepped in, her eyes scanning the room. She was flawless as always, every hair in place, every inch the woman groomed to be Mrs. Blackwood. But her gaze was sharp, searching, suspicious. Kane, she said slowly, why did you shut me out? Her eyes darted toward the desk, toward the faint shadow where Zarya stood just out of sight. What's going on here? The silence stretched. Kane's heartbeat thundered in his ears. One wrong move, one glance, and Evelyn would see everything. And just like that, the walls began to close in. Evelyn's heels clicked against the polished marble as she stepped fully into the office, her eyes scanning like a hawk. Kane's jaw flexed, every nerve in his body screaming at him to stay calm, stay collected, stay the CEO the world thought he was. But Zarya's presence just beyond the shadows made the air thick enough to choke on. Evelyn's gaze lingered on his desk. The photograph was still there, edges peeking out from beneath his trembling hand. Kane slid his palm over it, praying she hadn't noticed. Her eyes narrowed. Why is your door locked, Kane? Her tone wasn't soft curiosity, it was accusation. I can count on one hand the number of times you've shut me out. So tell me, what was so urgent you couldn't let me in? Kane forced a steady breath. A deal. Sensitive. I didn't want interruptions. Evelyn tilted her head, the kind of movement that always reminded him of Eleanor. Calculating, controlled, like she could peel the truth right off his skin. A deal? With who? There's no one here. The silence stretched. Behind him, he felt Zarya stiffen. Every second Evelyn remained in that office was a second closer to disaster. Kane stepped forward, blocking her line of sight toward the corner. Confidential, he said, voice clipped. You don't need to know the details. Her lips pressed together. Don't I? Or do you mean I'm not allowed to know? She stepped closer, her perfume trailing behind her, a carefully manufactured blend of roses and control. Kane clenched his jaw. You're overthinking this. Evelyn's gaze sharpened. Am I? Because lately, Kane, you've been distant, distracted, as if your mind is somewhere else, or with someone else. The words cut through the room like glass. Zarya's breath caught. Kane's pulse thundered. He had to stop this. You're imagining things, he said flatly. I've been focused on work. That's all. But Evelyn wasn't convinced. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a low hiss. If there's something you're hiding, Kane, you should remember one thing. Secrets never stay buried in families like ours. Not for long. Her words sent a chill down his spine, because she wasn't wrong. Secrets were the Blackwood currency, and the cost of exposure was blood. Before he could answer, Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, irritation flickering across her face. We'll finish this later, she said coldly. Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking like warning shots. The door shut. Silence roared back. Kane spun, his control snapping the moment Evelyn's perfume faded. Zarya stepped out from the shadows, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing. So that's the life you chose? Lying. Hiding. Locking doors while women fight over the scraps of your silence. Don't, Kane started, but she cut him off. No, Kane. You don't get to tell me not to. You think I wanted to walk back into this mess? Do you know what it took for me to come here, to face you after everything? Her voice cracked, but her fury held. And even now, you're still hiding. From her. From your family. From me. From your own son. Her words were knives, and every one of them landed. Kane dragged a hand down his face, his carefully built armor cracking. You think this is easy? You think I don't want to tell her, tell them all? You don't understand what's at stake. Zarya's laughter was sharp, bitter. At stake? Kane, the only thing at stake is whether you'll keep pretending, or finally be a man. You had a chance years ago. You chose silence. And that silence forced me to raise Malik alone. Do you know what it's like to watch your child look up at you and ask where his father is, while you're too busy guarding a family name to care? Her voice broke on the last word, and it shattered something inside him. He saw her then, not just the woman he loved, not just the girl who had walked out in the rain, but the mother who had carried his son through every sleepless night, every scraped knee, every question she couldn't answer. Alone. His throat tightened. Zarya. But she shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Don't you dare say my name like it means something. Not until you prove it does. The silence was unbearable. Kane wanted to close the space between them, to reach for her, to beg her to let him try again. But footsteps echoed in the corridor again, sharp and deliberate. Evelyn's voice, faint but closer. Zarya's eyes flicked to the door, then back to him. Decide, Kane. Are you going to keep living in their cage, or are you finally going to fight for something real? Because this time, I won't wait for you to find your courage. Malik won't wait. The footsteps stopped outside. The handle turned again. Evelyn was back. Zarya's breath caught, and her eyes locked on Kane's. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then the door creaked open. The door creaked open wider, and Evelyn stepped back inside, her gaze like a blade cutting through the tension that had barely settled. Kane's chest tightened. Zarya froze, just out of Evelyn's sight line, her heartbeat so loud she was certain it echoed in the room. Kane, Evelyn said slowly, eyes narrowing. I forgot my file. But why do I feel like I'm interrupting something? Her voice wasn't casual. It was calculated. A test. Kane forced himself to move, slipping into that familiar armor of composure. He strode to his desk, sliding a folder from the stack. Here, he said smoothly. Your file. But Evelyn didn't take it. She studied his face instead, her gaze unblinking. Strange, she murmured. You look unsettled. Nervous. Kane gritted his teeth. I'm fine. Her lips curved into a cold smile. Are you? She glanced around the room, every detail under scrutiny. The door locked. The tension in your shoulders. The way you keep positioning yourself in front of that corner, as though you're hiding something. Zarya's breath hitched. She pressed herself against the wall, praying Evelyn wouldn't step further in. Kane felt the ground shifting beneath him, his grip on control slipping. Enough, he snapped, his voice sharper than intended. You're reading into shadows. But Evelyn only arched a brow. Maybe. Or maybe I know you better than you think, Kane. And I know when you're lying. The words hung heavy between them. Kane forced a cold smile. If I were lying, Evelyn, you'd already have proof. Until then, stop wasting my time. Her smile didn't fade. But her eyes, those sharp, assessing eyes, lingered on him for a moment longer before she finally took the folder. Very well. But secrets, Kane. She tapped the folder against her palm. They never stay secrets forever. Her heels clicked as she turned and left the room again, the door shutting behind her with a weight that felt more like a warning than a retreat. Cain exhaled shakily, running a hand down his face. Zarya stepped out, fury flashing in her eyes. That's who you're going to marry? A woman who sees right through you, but not for love, for power. She doesn't care about you, Cain. She only cares about the Blackwood legacy. And you're letting them chain you to her like a trophy. Cain's voice was raw. You think I want this? You think I ever wanted Evelyn, or this engagement? Every step I take in this family is a negotiation, a sacrifice. Then why didn't you fight for me? Zarya's voice cracked, her anger colliding with pain. Why didn't you fight for us? For Malik? You let your family decide your future while I was carrying your son. And when I tried to reach you, when I begged, I was shut out like I never mattered. Her words sliced through him, guilt flooding his veins. He remembered the missed calls, Clara's reminders that Zarya had come by again, the excuses he'd fed himself to avoid facing the truth. He had buried himself in work, in obligations, in silence. Cain whispered, almost broken, I thought walking away would protect you. Zarya's laugh was bitter, hollow. Protect me? Cain, you didn't protect me. You abandoned me. And you left Malik fatherless. Her words echoed, and for a moment, Cain couldn't breathe. Silence swallowed them whole, heavy and suffocating. Then the intercom on his desk crackled to life. Clara's voice, calm and efficient. Mr. Blackwood, your parents just arrived. They're on their way up. Cain's blood ran cold. Richard. Eleanor. If Evelyn suspected, his parents arriving now was a disaster waiting to happen. Zarya's eyes widened, panic flickering across her face. Your parents? Cain nodded, his pulse racing. They can't see you. Not like this. Not yet. Zarya's jaw clenched. So I'm still a secret to them. And Malik? He's still a shadow you're too afraid to claim. The door handle rattled. Voices in the hall. Richard's deep baritone. Eleanor's clipped commands. Cain moved fast, grabbing Zarya's arm. Please, just for now. I need time. I can't let them find out like this. She yanked her arm free, her eyes blazing with betrayal. Time? Cain, you've had 5 years. The footsteps drew closer. The door handle turned. Zarya's chest heaved, torn between fury and heartbreak. And Cain was about to be exposed in the most catastrophic way possible. The office door swung open. The office door swung wide, and the presence of Richard and Eleanor Blackwood filled the room like an oncoming storm. Richard's towering frame was the first to step through, his sharp suit as imposing as his reputation. Eleanor followed, her elegance sharp as a blade, her eyes scanning every detail before anyone had the chance to speak. Cain, Richard's voice boomed, commanding the space as though it already belonged to him. We expected you downstairs. Why are you up here, with the door locked? Cain's chest tightened, his carefully constructed facade threatening to crack. His father's tone was not a question, it was a judgment. I was handling business, Cain managed, his voice steadier than he felt. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her gaze flickering across his desk, the room, the faint traces of tension in his stance. Business? Strange. You look unsettled. Distracted. That is not the son we raised. Behind the curtain of shadow, Zarya pressed herself tighter against the wall, her pulse pounding so loud she thought they'd hear it. Every nerve in her body screamed to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Richard strode further into the room, his voice sharp. You know tonight is important. The Lancasters will be here. Evelyn's family expects clarity about the engagement. Do not embarrass this family by losing focus. The words landed like shackles around Cain's throat. His father wasn't just reminding him of duty, he was warning him. Eleanor, ever perceptive, tilted her head. "And where is Evelyn? She should be at your side, not wandering halls alone." Kane swallowed hard. She was here. She left to prepare. But Eleanor's eyes stayed fixed on him. Calculating. Cold. "Yet your door was locked. Why? Who are you hiding from us?" Kane's pulse spiked. He opened his mouth, desperate to buy time when a muffled sound. The soft scrape of a shoe against the floorboards. Richard's head snapped toward the noise. His voice was a blade. "Who's there?" Zarya's heart lurched. She froze, breath trapped in her chest. Kane stepped forward quickly, blocking their line of sight. "It's nothing. Just Clara dropping off papers earlier. She must have left something behind." But Eleanor wasn't convinced. She moved toward the corner, her heels deliberate, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. Zarya's stomach dropped. If Eleanor turned the corner, the truth would detonate right here, in front of the two people who would fight hardest to bury it. Kane's voice cracked like thunder. "Mother. Enough." The word startled even Richard. Kane rarely raised his voice to his mother. Eleanor froze, her eyes narrowing at him with icy precision. "Enough," she repeated softly, dangerously. "You dare speak to me like that?" Kane's jaw clenched. He'd never felt more cornered in his life. "Yes. Because this is my office. My life. And I don't need you inspecting every shadow like I'm a child." Eleanor's lips curved, not in amusement but in disdain. "Your life? Don't delude yourself, Kane. Everything you are, everything you own, comes from this family. And families like ours don't tolerate secrets." The air thickened, tension crackling like lightning. Zarya's hands trembled. She knew this family's power, their reach. She had once loved Kane despite it, but standing here now, she felt the cold walls of their world pressing in again. Richard's voice broke the silence, deep and decisive. "We will not argue here. The Lancasters expect us shortly. Eleanor, come." But Eleanor didn't move. Her eyes burned into Kane's. "Whoever you're hiding, it will not stay hidden for long. And when it comes out, you won't just answer to us. You'll answer to the world." With that, she finally turned, sweeping from the room with Richard close behind. The door closed with a slam that felt more like a gavel dropping. The silence left behind was unbearable. Zarya stepped out from her corner, her eyes wet, her voice trembling with rage and grief. "You see? That's why I left. That's why I raised Malik far away from this poison. Because your parents, your world, they don't see people, they see pawns. And if Malik grows up here, he'll be nothing more than another Blackwood heir to parade around." Kane's voice broke. "No. I would never let that happen. He's my son, Zarya. Mine. I won't let them touch him." Her eyes searched his face, torn between the man she had loved and the man still shackled to his family's empire. "Then prove it, Kane. Prove to me you'll fight for him. For us. Not with promises. Not with words. With action." Before Kane could respond, the intercom buzzed again. Clara's voice, crisp, detached. "Mr. Blackwood, Evelyn has returned. She insists on seeing you immediately. She says it cannot wait." Kane's breath caught. "Evelyn." Again. Zarya's chest rose and fell rapidly. "Then this is it. Either you keep me hidden, keep Malik hidden, and live the rest of your life in their prison, or you open that door and finally face the truth." The handle rattled. Evelyn's voice, sharp and insistent, echoed from the other side. "Kane, open this door. Now." The sound sliced through the room. Zarya's tear-streaked eyes locked on his, the weight of 5 years of silence pressing down on him. "Choose, Kane. Her or us." The handle turned harder. The door began to open. The door swung open hard, slamming against the wall, and Evelyn strode inside like she already owned the place. Her heels struck the marble with a rhythm of dominance, her eyes sweeping the office in one unbroken scan. "Kane," she snapped, her voice slicing through the tension. "What is going on? First, you lock me out, then your parents arrive unsettled, and now Clara tells me you've been shutting yourself off all morning. Enough. I want answers." Kane's chest was tight, his hands flexing against the desk. He had no script for this moment. No boardroom logic, no Blackwood strategy could save him. Behind him, Zarya stiffened. She couldn't stay hidden forever. Not now. Not with Evelyn's eyes narrowing, searching every corner. Evelyn's gaze landed on the faint shimmer of movement just behind Kane. Her brows furrowed. "Who's here?" Kane stepped forward, blocking her view. "No one you need to worry about." Her lips parted, then curled into something between a sneer and a smile. "No one I need to worry about? That sounds exactly like someone I should worry about." She tilted her head, her eyes sharp. "Move, Kane." His pulse thundered. "Evelyn. Move." The command cracked like a whip. For the first time in years, Kane felt powerless. He hesitated, and in that pause, Zarya stepped forward. The air seemed to vanish from the room as Evelyn's eyes locked onto her. For a beat, silence ruled. Evelyn blinked once, twice, her expression unreadable, then it hardened into steel. "Well, I didn't expect this." Her voice dripped venom, but it was the deadly calm underneath that chilled the room. "Evelyn," Kane started, but she cut him off with a raised hand. "No. Don't insult me with excuses. She's the reason you've been distracted. Isn't she?" Evelyn's eyes flicked from Kane to Zarya, then back again. "Tell me, Kane, how long have you been sneaking around behind my back?" Zarya's chest rose sharply. "It's not what you think." Evelyn's laugh was short, humorless. "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like. A scandal waiting to explode." Kane's voice was raw, urgent. "Stop. This isn't about scandal. It's about truth." "Truth?" Evelyn arched a brow. "Then enlighten me. What truth justifies humiliating me? Making a fool of my family? What truth could possibly explain why she is standing in your office like she belongs here?" The words sliced into Zarya, but she lifted her chin, refusing to shrink back. Her voice trembled, but her courage held. "The truth is, I do belong here. Because I was here long before you. And because 5 years ago, Kane and I had a son." The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn's face went white, then red, fury flooding her veins. She turned to Kane, her voice rising. "A what?" Kane swallowed hard, his entire world tilting. "It's true. His name is Malik. He's 5. He's my son." Evelyn staggered back a step, the revelation crashing into her like a tidal wave. Her voice shook with disbelief and rage. You have a child with her? And you kept it from me? From everyone?" Zarya's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. "We didn't keep it." He walked away. He chose silence. Kane flinched. Evelyn's gaze snapped back to him, venom dripping from every word. "Is this why you've been so hesitant about the engagement? Why you've dragged your feet at every step? Because of her? Because of some bastard child you never had the courage to admit to?" "Don't call him that," Kane snapped, his voice breaking through the weight of her insult. "Malik is my son. And he's not a mistake. He's the best part of me." Evelyn's jaw dropped, her fury trembling on the edge of eruption. "Do you even realize what you've done? Do you understand what this means for the Blackwoods, for the Lancasters? For everything our families have built? You've destroyed it all for her." Her finger stabbed the air toward Zarya, her contempt burning like fire. Zarya's breath hitched, but she stood her ground. I didn't come back to ruin anything. I came back because my son deserves to know his father. Whatever mess your family's built, that's not my fault. And it won't be Malik's burden to carry." Her words landed with the force of a storm, and for the first time, Evelyn's composure faltered. Her lips trembled, her eyes flashing with betrayal, with rage, with something darker. Cain stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Evelyn, listen to me. I can't marry you. Not now. Not when I have a son who needs me. Not when the woman his voice cracked, but he pressed on. The woman I love is standing right here." Evelyn's face twisted. A gasp tore from her throat, half fury, half heartbreak. "You love her? After everything? After what this means for us, for me?" Cain's silence was his answer. Her chest rose and fell, fury trembling in every line of her body. Then her voice turned cold, lethal. "Do you have any idea what you've unleashed? This won't just be about you, Cain. This will destroy your parents, the Lancasters, the company, everything. And I won't go down quietly while you hand it all over to her." Her eyes locked on Zarya, burning with a promise. "You don't belong in this world. And I will make sure you never set foot in it again." Zarya's heart pounded, her hand curling into a fist at her side. Cain stepped between them, his body tense, his voice sharp. "Enough. You won't touch her. You won't touch Malik. Not ever." The words hung heavy, a vow more dangerous than any deal Cain had ever made. But Evelyn only smiled, cold and cruel. "You think you can protect them from me? From my family? From yours? You have no idea what kind of war you've just started." Her heels struck the marble as she turned, her fury trailing like fire. She yanked the door open, her voice slicing the air as she stormed out. "This isn't over, Cain. Not by a long shot." The door slammed shut. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm outside. Zarya's chest heaved, her eyes wide, her body trembling. "She's going to come after me. After Malik." Cain's jaw tightened, his voice a whisper of steel. "Let her try." But even as he said it, a chill ran down his spine. Evelyn was right about one thing. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about war. And the Blackwoods never lost a war. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed again in the hallway, heavier, slower, unmistakable. His parents were coming back. The door creaked open again, slower this time, but heavier, like judgment itself was walking in. Richard Blackwood stepped inside first, his frame rigid, his presence suffocating. Eleanor followed close behind, her chin high, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. The air shifted instantly. Even without Evelyn there, her storm still lingered, thick and suffocating. Cain's heart slammed against his ribs. Zarya stood frozen by the window, her breath shallow, her fingers trembling against her skirt. Richard's eyes flicked between Cain and Zarya in a single sweep. His jaw tightened, the lines on his face deepening into ridges of disappointment. "So, it's true." Eleanor's gaze lingered on Zarya, her lips curling into disdain. "I wondered why Evelyn came storming down the hall like a wounded animal. Now I see. You've disgraced us." Cain's voice was hoarse, but steady. "I've done nothing disgraceful. I've done what I should have done years ago." Richard's voice boomed, low and cold. "What you should have done was honor your family, your legacy. Not dig up ghosts from the past and parade them into our house." Zarya's spine stiffened, her chin lifting despite the tremor in her voice. "I'm not a ghost. And neither is Malik. He's your grandson." Eleanor's eyes snapped to her, venom dripping from every syllable. "Don't you dare speak that name in this office." Zarya's heart pounded, but she didn't back down. "He has a name. Malik Cole Blackwood. He exists whether you want to erase him or not. And he deserves to know his family, even if you refuse to claim him." The silence that followed burned hotter than fire. Richard's fist slammed against Kane's desk, the wood groaning under the force. Enough. This ends now. His glare pierced through Kane. You will send her away. You will silence this talk of a child. And you will stand with Evelyn tonight, as we agreed. That is the only way forward. Kane's chest heaved, rage flooding his veins. For years he had bowed, bent, sacrificed. But something inside him snapped. No. The word was sharp, final, defiant. Richard's eyes widened, his face darkening with fury. What did you just say to me? Kane's voice rose, years of silence unraveling. I said no. I'm done letting you control every part of my life. I'm done pretending. Malik is my son. And I won't let him grow up thinking his father was too much of a coward to claim him. Zaria's eyes filled, her hand flying to her mouth. For the first time, she heard Kane's voice ring with something she had begged for years ago: courage. Eleanor's lips curled, venomous. You fool. Do you know what you've done? You've just handed our enemies a weapon. A bastard child, a scandal, a mistress from the shadows. Do you think the press, the Lancasters, our board will let this pass? Kane's jaw clenched. He is not a bastard. He is my son. And Zaria is not a mistress. She is the woman I should have fought for all along. The room vibrated with tension, the air thick with fury and disbelief. Richard stepped forward, towering over him, his voice like a whip. Do you think love will save you in this world? Do you think it will protect you from the board, from shareholders, from the empire that rests on your shoulders? Wake up, Kane. You're not a man, you're an heir. And heirs don't get to choose. The words dug into him, but Kane didn't flinch. Then maybe I don't want to be your heir anymore. The silence that followed was a chasm. Richard's face twisted, disbelief and fury colliding. Eleanor's gasp was sharp, her hand clutching the pearl necklace at her throat as if it could shield her from the disgrace of her son's rebellion. You ungrateful boy, Richard spat. Everything you have came from me. And you'd throw it away for a woman who couldn't even claw her way into this world without clinging to your name. Zaria's breath caught, fury blazing in her eyes. Don't you dare. I never wanted your world. I built my life without it. I raised Malik without a dime from you. He doesn't need your empire, he needs his father. Her words rang out, trembling but powerful, slicing through the venom that filled the room. Eleanor's voice dripped with ice. If you keep her, Kane, you will lose everything. The company, the name, the power. You'll be nothing but a man with a woman and a child. Is that really what you want? Kane's eyes flicked to Zaria. Her tear-streaked face. Her trembling shoulders. Her unyielding strength. And in that moment, he realized, it was all he ever wanted. His voice was steady, resolute. Yes. If that's the cost, I'll pay it. Eleanor's face paled, her fury trembling beneath her control. Richard shook his head, disbelief etched into every line of his face. You'll regret this, Richard growled. When she leaves you. When the world turns its back. When your child grows up hating you for dragging him into this mess, you'll remember this moment, and you'll know you chose wrong. Kane's voice broke, but his resolve didn't. The only regret I have is not choosing them sooner. Zaria's hand flew to her lips, her tears spilling faster. For the first time, she saw him not as the man who broke her heart, but as the man who was finally fighting for her. For Malik. For them. The room pulsed with silence, the weight of his rebellion hanging heavy. Then, like a final dagger, Eleanor's voice cut through. If you walk out with her, don't bother coming back. You will no longer be a Blackwood. You will no longer be our son. The words landed like thunder, final and absolute. Zaria gasped, her hand trembling against Kane's arm. She whispered, almost broken, Kane. But Kane didn't waver. his eyes, glassy with unshed tears, locked on his mother. Then so be it. The silence that followed was unbearable. Richard's glare could have set the room ablaze. Eleanor's lips trembled with rage and heartbreak. Then, from the hallway, another sound. A smaller sound. A voice. "Daddy." Everyone froze. Kane's blood turned to ice. He knew that voice. High, innocent, soft, yet powerful enough to shatter every wall he had ever built. The door, still cracked open, revealed the small figure of a boy with dark curls and wide, curious eyes. Malik. Zaria's breath left her in a sob. She hadn't wanted him here, hadn't planned this, but Clara, sweet Clara, must have guided him up. Malik stepped into the office, clutching a small toy car in his hand. His gaze flicked from Zaria to Kane, then to the towering figures of Richard and Eleanor. His little brow furrowed. "Mommy? Why are they yelling at Daddy?" The room stopped breathing. The room froze around Malik. The silence was so thick it hummed in Kane's ears. His son, his flesh, his blood, stood in the middle of his office, clutching that little red car, his eyes too innocent to understand the battlefield he had walked into. Zaria's breath hitched, her hand flying to her chest. "Malik," her voice trembled as she moved instinctively toward him, but Kane was already crossing the room. He dropped to his knees before the boy, his hands trembling as they reached out. "Malik," he whispered, his voice breaking in ways it never had before. His throat burned, his chest heavy. Up close, the boy's face was clearer now, his eyes, a mirror of Kane's own. The boy tilted his head. "Daddy." The word tore through Kane like a blade and a bomb all at once. For years he had imagined this moment. For years he had buried the ache of not knowing. And now here he was, his son, looking at him not with confusion, but with certainty. "Yes," Kane breathed, tears slipping free. "Yes, buddy. I'm your dad." Richard's voice cracked through the moment, harsh and unforgiving. "No. You are no father to that child. He is not a Blackwood. This ends here." Malik's small frame stiffened, his eyes darting between the voices, his little fists clenching. "Why's he mad?" he asked softly, his words piercing the room like arrows. Zaria reached him now, pulling him gently into her arms, her body a shield. Her own tears spilled freely as she whispered, "Don't listen, baby. It's okay." But Kane rose to his feet, his body trembling with fury. He turned to Richard, his father, the man whose shadow had loomed over every decision he had ever made. His voice was rough, raw. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare deny him. He is mine. My son. And nothing you say will ever change that." Richard's face darkened, his jaw clenched so tight it looked carved from stone. "Then you've chosen. You've chosen her. You've chosen that child. And you've chosen to throw away everything I built for you." Eleanor's voice was sharp as glass. "We warned you. You're no longer welcome in this family, Kane. Walk out of this house with them, and the Blackwood name will never protect you again." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Zaria's grip on Malik tightened. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Kane, think carefully. Don't do this because of me. I don't want you to lose everything. I don't want you to hate me later." Kane's chest heaved, his eyes locked on hers. "Zaria, I've hated myself for years. For letting you walk away. For letting Malik grow up without me. But if I lose you again, if I lose him, I'll have nothing anyway." Zaria's tears spilled harder, her heart caught between fear and love. Richard's voice thundered, final and cold. "Then you are no son of mine." The room spun in silence, the weight of the words crushing down. Eleanor turned her back, her pearls trembling against her throat. Richard's eyes blazed like fire, but Kane didn't flinch. He stepped toward Zaria and Malik, his voice steady though his hands shook. "I don't need the Blackwood name. I don't need the empire. I just need them." Zarya's breath left her in a sob as Cain cupped her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. For a heartbeat, the storm outside ceased to matter. It was just them, the boy between them, the woman who had always owned his heart, and the man who was finally brave enough to choose them. Malik looked up at him, his eyes wide. "Does this mean you're staying with us, Daddy?" Cain dropped to his knees again, his hands gripping Malik's small shoulders. His voice cracked. "Forever. I promise you, I will never leave you again." Malik smiled then, wide and pure, and in that smile Cain found his redemption. Behind them, Richard's voice tried one last time, sharp with desperation. "You'll regret this, Cain. The world won't be kind to you. To them. Love doesn't protect you from ruin." Cain rose, his arm around Zarya, his other hand holding Malik's small one. His eyes burned with fire as he met his father's glare one last time. "Maybe not. But love is the only thing that makes the ruin worth surviving." Without another word, he turned. The office that had once felt like a throne room now felt like a prison. And as the door closed behind them, Cain felt the chains that had bound him for decades finally break. The hall stretched ahead, Clara waiting at the far end, her eyes wet, her hands pressed to her mouth. She had heard it all. She gave Cain the smallest nod, of pride, of relief, of loyalty. Cain squeezed Zarya's hand, Malik skipping lightly between them, blissfully unaware of the storm they had just walked through. As they stepped out into the night, the city lights glimmered, the air sharp with change. For the first time in years, Cain didn't feel the weight of the Blackwood legacy crushing his chest. Instead, he felt the fragile, unshakable weight of love anchoring him. And for the first time he smiled, a real unguarded smile. The empire might fall. The name might fade. But he had won the only thing that mattered. His family. "Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end, family." Cain, Zarya, and Malik's story reminds us that love isn't about perfection. It's about courage, forgiveness, and fighting for what truly matters. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join our family and enjoy more emotional love stories just like this. We read every comment and pray that this story inspires you in your own life.